This is a pre-lab lecture on chemical sleuthing. In this lab, you will be given 8 known chemicals and 8 unknown chemicals. You will mix the 8 known chemicals and conduct 28 reactions. You will record your observations, and then you will react the unknown chemicals, also observe and record. You will eventually be able to identify the 8 unknown chemicals solely based on your observations. So first, let me show you a table of the 8 known chemicals. They're right here. Sodium silicate, sodium hydroxide, barium chloride, sulfuric acid, sodium iodide, ammonium chloride, silver nitrate, sodium bromide. And then you will react every chemical with all other chemicals. For example, sodium silicate will react with sodium hydroxide, barium chloride, sulfuric acid, etc. However, you do not have to mix a compound with itself. Just put no reaction in this diagonal line. And also, if you mix sodium silicate with sodium hydroxide, do it only once. Put your observation here. You do not have to put any observation here as well, because this cell and this cell are for the same reaction, the reaction between sodium hydroxide and sodium silicate. And similarly, if you finished the reaction between sodium hydroxide and barium chloride, put the observation here, but not here. Right? Do not repeat the same reaction. So those are 8 known chemicals. The 8 unknown chemicals are the same as the 8 known chemicals, but in a different order, and are labeled with 1 to 8. So it's your job to react with every single unknown chemical with all other unknown chemicals, and then fill in this table with your observations. Based on your observations, you will be able to identify these 8 unknowns. Again, these unknowns are simply the same as these 8 known chemicals in a different order. All right, let's get back to the lecture notes. Safety. Wear goggles at all times. Wear gloves when you're dealing with chemicals. Sulfuric acid, sodium hydroxide, and silver nitrate are all corrosive. So again, record your observations in the tables. For each chemical solution, you need a pipette. Therefore, you need a total of 16 pipettes, 8 for the knowns and 8 for the unknowns. Be sure to label every pipette. You need about 1 to 2 milliliters of each solution. I'll let you estimate. When you observe the reactions between the 8 known chemicals, you have to record your observations faithfully. What kind of observations? Well, when there's no reaction, just put NR in the cell. But sometimes you may observe precipitates with a color. You may observe cloudiness, heat, if you feel it. You may see gas bubbles if gas is produced. But sometimes, if you just mix water with water, due to the stirring, you may see air bubbles. So do not confuse air bubbles with the production of a new chemical in the gas state. Now, what's the difference between precipitate and cloudiness? So this is a clear solution. But sometimes when chemicals react, they may form these tiny particles being suspended in the solution. It's also called cloudiness. If the cloud is white, just record white cloudiness. Sometimes you form larger solid particles with a high density, and these particles sink to the bottom of the container. We call that precipitate. So again, record those reactions in your notebook. Later, you will identify the 8 unknown chemicals solely based on your observations. Besides the aforementioned possible phenomena, you may also smell some reactions. For example, ammonium chloride may react with a strong base, such as sodium hydroxide, and produce ammonia. Ammonia has a very unpleasant odor, more or less like Windex. So how do you smell a chemical properly? Well, if you have only a very, very small amount, you can smell ammonia, in this case, directly. After you identify these 2 chemicals among the 8 unknown chemicals, you can, let's say, maybe number 5 and number 7, and then you mix these 2. 3 or even 5 drops of each chemical, and then smell it. But if you are dealing with a more significant amount of chemicals, do not smell the chemical directly. This is wrong. Waft the fume of the chemical to your nose carefully. About writing. You just need to record the experimental procedure for the first reaction. You do not have to repeat the procedure 56 times. Again, you will do 28 reactions between known chemicals and also 28 reactions between unknown chemicals. It does not make sense to write the same procedure 56 times. It's more important to record, to observe and record carefully. Again, in the end, you will be able to identify these unknown chemicals solely based on your recorded observations. After the lab period, neatly filling the printed tables of the observation matrices and include these 2 matrices or tables as part of your lab report. Again, if there's no reaction, just write NR. Do not leave any cell blank. Finally, follow the instructions in the grading rubric.